Welcome to Beauty and the Mess, redefining what it means to have it all and how to find fulfillment in life. And now your host, transformational life coach, and creator of the activewear line Beauty and the Mess, Robin Emmerich.
Welcome to Beauty and the Mess podcast. Today we've got Kinya Claiborne, editor-in-chief of Style and Society magazine, style influencer and content creator. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I've been waiting for this. So trying to think back, I think we met like at least a year ago, may have even been 2 years.
I think it was 2 years actually.
2 years? Okay.
I can't believe it's been that long.
I know. I'm trying to think back, and I've been following you consistently, seeing all that you're doing, and you know, you've really recently like come into who you are, and I've just really been inspired by your voice, your passion, your purpose. Excited to have you here to, you know, just really have some like real honest conversation. And for those that don't know you, maybe it'd be really helpful to just kind of share your story of how you got to where you're at, to Style and Society, to become an influencer, and just all that you do.
Yeah, of course. Well, I am originally from Northern California, right outside of Napa Valley, a small town called Fairfield. And I went to Sacramento State and majored in mass communications. Now, I've always known from an early age that I wanted to work in some facet of the communications industry, just because I was always interested in, you know, connecting with people and you know, being very social and how to relay a message across. And so I went to Sacramento State, graduated, and right after I graduated, I moved to Los Angeles. Now, I spent the last 20 years actually working in corporate America for Fortune 500 companies like IKEA, American Honda Motor Company, Jack's Pacific, and then I got the itch for entertainment and parlayed that into entertainment. And in entertainment, I worked for PMK HBH, which at the time was the largest entertainment publicity firms in the country. So they repped, you know, big talent, big names like Will Smith and Miley Cyrus. Then I moved on to work for a government agency. I'm actually working with a architectural design engineering firm, basically doing corporate communications, public affairs, community relations, that type of work. So over 20 years of, you know, public relations, media relations, corporate communications, corporate social responsibility, you know, all of those different things. And I actually never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I never had that desire at all, had no interest in doing it. You know, it's not like I never had a mentor that was a businesswoman that, you know, kind of took me under her wings or anything like that. And so, you know, being an entrepreneur was nothing that was ever in my vision board.
I love that.
But you know,
that happened.
Yeah. So my last job, you know, working in public affairs, I was there for about 10 years, right? And after 10 years, after the first couple of years, you know, I felt like I wasn't being challenged or mentally stimulated or growing, and it kind of felt very stagnant. And although I loved my job, you know, it didn't fulfill, you know, some of the passions and interests that I had personally. So like fashion and travel and food and like all of those sexy things. And I tell people all the time, like, you know, your job may not necessarily be your passion, you know, but if it's not, then create something that is and just do it on the side. You know, it's like you can have your job and you could have your passion. You know, you can have both. Some people that's together, some people it's separate. And so what I did is kind of just as my creative outlet, I created Style and Society. So Style and Society, if you look back like probably close to 20 years ago, there was a website called Daily Candy. So it was kind of the first of its kind. It was like an email newsletter that came out every day, and it kind of gave like a little dose of everything that girls like. So like fashion and entertainment and beauty and health and wellness. And every
I do remember.
Yeah, right? It was awesome, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, this was like when internet kind of like first started coming out, and like email was kind of a new thing. Like this was like back in like probably like 98, 99. It was like late 90s, if I'm not mistaken, maybe early 2000s. But yeah, so it was amazing. And it was the first of its kind. And then all of a sudden, after a few years, it just disappeared. So what had happened is like a big conglomerate came and bought it and closed it down, right? And so I felt like it always left a little bit of this void, and nothing really came to replace it in the same way. And so that was just kind of like my inspiration, behind starting Style and Society. So basically style represents more than fashion. Style represents lifestyle, and society is how we all connect. So it's through food, it's through travel, it's through entertainment, it's through everything that we touch, breathe, and see. The other background behind starting Style and Society is, African Americans and people of color aren't always represented in media. And sometimes when they are, they're misrepresented. And so I wanted to create my own platform where I'm able to really celebrate culture and celebrate diversity. And so it's like, no matter what color you are, no matter what your sexual preference is, no matter, it's like you feel a sense of connection. Every time you read an article, every time you go to the website, it's like you see a bit of you in it. So I started that. Thank you. Yeah, so I started in, I think it was 2013 is when I started Style and Society magazine. And again, when I started it, I was still working full time. I just created it just like as a creative outlet, just to fulfill like all of my love of the things that I like to do, and, be able to share that with the world. So at that time, like I was already traveling a lot. I was already going to like a lot of like red carpet events and things like that. But it's like, and that came through my my time working in the entertainment industry, right? Working in the entertainment industry, all the jobs that I've had, like I've just always been a social person, and I've always just been very connected. And so what good is it to be able to experience all of these amazing things if you don't have a platform to be able to be a resource and to share it with others? So Style and Society was created. And so I did it just as a creative outlet or like a hobby, right? To kind of, keep me mentally stimulated, From there it grew. That's kind of how it happened.
Did it kind of immediately take off because it was something different out there? Or did it take time?
Well, I mean, like when I started it, I didn't start it to be a business. Like I always said, even if I never made $1 from it, like I would still do it with the same amount of passion and energy, because
what takes off. Yes. Yes. Because you truly love it.
Some people say
I feel that as you say that, it's like, I can feel that's still true for you as you're saying that.
Yeah. And so, again, when I started Style and Society, like I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone that told me how to create a business. I was really just going into it blindly and like learning as I went. So it's like I had to like learn how to, create a website, and like, how to create a domain, how to, just like all of those different things. I had no idea how to create a DBE, like all of those different things, how to, create a logo, how to get a trademark, like all these things, no one taught me how to do it. And so people ask me all the time, what was the hardest part about starting Style and Society? And for me, number one, it was starting, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of people out there, and they talk about their passions, what they want to do, their goals and all of this, but they don't put any action behind it.
Yeah.
So first it was actually starting it. And then 2 is finding my name. And as you can see, like I have these shirts, Style and Society. Style and Society.
It's so cute.
So long. Thank you. It took me like a year. It took me an entire year just to come up with my name. As you know, I mean, the internet is so cluttered with names. People are just buying domains just to buy them and sell them. And I mean, you almost have to just create your own word in order to find something that exists.
I love how much purpose and meaning you have it behind it though, because I can, I can feel your passion and purpose in it as you speak, which I think is so important because there is so much out there that authenticity is what we're all looking for to connect with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And,
Yeah.
I remember feeling that with you, like literally the moment I met you, and, that translates online, I believe, as well. And it's harder to translate online. As you continued growing, what would you say was your greatest challenge as you continue to grow while still working?
Yeah. So it was a balance. So, my sign is a Libra. And if you know anything about Libras, is they're the balance beam, right? So we're really great at balancing life. And so I continued to work full time, and my job was very supportive. So I had to travel a lot. Like I literally was going on influencer trips and press trips, literally all over the world.
Wow.
And so I was traveling and I was gone from work a lot. And so they were just very flexible in that sense. And so basically how my day was is I would wake up like at maybe like 5 a.m. and I would, check Style and Society emails, respond to emails. I would do some writing and then get dressed, go to work. I'll be at work all day. And then once I got off of work, I would usually have a change of clothes, and I would either like change in the bathroom or like change in the car and then go like straight to like a red carpet event, do my makeup, hair and everything and just go straight to a red carpet event. And so that was every single day was like that. And some days I would have anywhere from like 1 to 6 events in one night,
Wow.
And I love being really busy, and I'm so used to it that when I'm not, that's when I get like really antsy,
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a social butterfly, and
Yeah.
like for me, going to events is not work. It's fun. It's like, who wouldn't want to go to a grand opening of a restaurant and try some amazing food and have cocktails and see your friends and like all of these different things. I mean, to me, it's not work. To me, it's fun. And so I always say, like, some people are very envious of the lifestyle, and all they see is just the Instagram stories and the Instagram posts, and they don't know the struggle and the work that it took to get there, and they don't see the journey. They just see the end result.
Right. That's true with so many things. So I'd love for you to talk about what have you found has changed in your world now with content creation and influencer work.
Yeah. So, when I started Style and Society magazine, I didn't start it to be an entrepreneur, and I didn't start it to be an influencer. The influencer thing just kind of evolved over time. It just kind of happened. I mean, I was already creating like really cool content, and so the influencer thing, I just continued to get more followers, and that's how the influencer thing, became about. And then I started working with like big brands and even bigger brands across entertainment, fashion, lifestyle, travel, food, beauty, all those different segments. So for me, starting with quarantine, it really did have an impact on my business in the sense that, all of my trips were canceled. So I had a trip that I was going on with Revolve. It was a cruise, and that got canceled. And then I had I had a couple of other, big trips. I also had Coachella, all those things, all my travel stuff got canceled. And then a large part of what we do is events. And as you know, like every event was canceled as of like the second week of March, every single event. Yep. And so we really had to restructure in terms of the content that we were creating in the magazine, and the content that I was creating, on my social media platforms. So, being on lockdown, it really, it really puts the strain on you really having to be creative, and, sometimes being able to create that content on your own, in your own home. With the social distancing mandate, it kind of put a halt on a lot of work and a lot of businesses. And so first the pandemic happened with COVID-19. And then right after that, the Black Lives Matter movement happened. And, it was already difficult enough, during lockdown, during COVID, to continue to create content that is uplifting and that's inspirational and that will, maybe help somebody that might actually see your post on Instagram or read something on Facebook from you. Then when the Black Lives Matter movement hit, it was really more of my responsibility to be a voice as an influencer, to be able to use my platform to better further the movement and also create meaningful change to my audience. Also a form of like education, right? So the Black Lives Matter movement, I shared a post last week, and it was a picture that was taken in 1943 of my family. It was like 5 generations of Claiborne family women in this photo. The oldest in the photo is my great-great-great-grandmother, and she was born in the 1860s. And when she was born, she was born a slave and born into slavery. And although slavery had ended a few years later, with the Civil War also ended a few years later, she was still a slave. Just because it ended didn't mean slavery ended across the United States. So, at 15, she was raped by her slave master. And, her daughter, was born, I think, in 1877. And then, the generations go on and on and on. And, my grandmother is also in the photo. She was born in the 1920s. And that was during the time where there was a reemergence of the KKK and then also segregation, and, just dealing what we're dealing with today. It's like a cycle, right? It's like, it's not, this movement didn't just start. I mean, this is a result of systematic racism that's been going on for more than 400 years, in America. And so I will say that the greatest thing about, going to these protests is it's not just Black people that are there. It's people from all walks of life, all ages, all ethnicities, all religions, all backgrounds, everybody really coming together. And, that's really inspirational to see.
Because that's what's new. That's what's changed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I also think that, it's an interesting time, like politically, it's like, if you didn't vote before, now is the time to vote. If you don't like what's happening, use your voice to change it, And I think that message is coming through loud and clear, especially now. I think, I think in terms of like me as an influencer and all the brands that I work with, oftentimes I am the only one in the room. When I go on these influencer trips and these press trips, I'm usually the token Black girl. With all of these like fashion brands and like beauty brands and, all of these different things, it's not usually a mix. It's like, okay, we have our one token and so we're good. And, I've lived that my whole life. So like, just because the movement happened, it's not like anything's changed. It's like, but I feel like now it's like companies are really looking into their organizations and really trying to ensure that they are representing diversity and inclusion within their organization and externally, it was interesting, like during the Black Lives Matter movement, when it started earlier this month, I literally went through all of my feed and I looked at all the brands that I work with. And I looked at how many people of color do they have on their feed, and there's not a lot,
Wow.
There's not a lot. I mean, and it's beyond Black people, it's like people of color, whether you're Asian, whether you're Latin, whether you're Black, like all companies should really strive to celebrate diversity and inclusion. They should.
Right.
And I think they're looking more at it now.
Yeah, I agree. What did that feel like for you in the past versus now? Was that always in your awareness? Was that something that was always on your mind? Or did it almost become more of a norm for you and it's being brought back up?
For me, it's always been the norm. It's always been the norm. I mean, like, you know, going to school, you know, I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 Black kids in the classroom. You know, I'm used to being a minority. You know, the city that I grew up in, I mean, you know, it was somewhat diverse, but you know, it wasn't uncommon to, you know, be the token, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So so seeing this, it's nothing new for me, you know, but I think for people that don't look like me, they've never seen it. Like they've never realized it, you know. It's like now they're thinking about it a little bit different, you know.
Yeah, so tell me, how has your like content creation changed around your messaging? Like what is really in your heart to share with people at this time?
Yeah, so I think you know, I think there's a campaign by Sharon Schutler. She's the CEO of a brand called Oma Beauty. It's an African-American owned beauty brand. She's like a total boss babe. She's like, I think like 33 or 34 years old. She's from Nigeria. And she started this company maybe like a year ago. And it's like one of my favorite like beauty brands. And I love her because she's outspoken and, you know, she, you know, doesn't say sorry and she is just like in your face. And so she created this campaign called Pull Up or Shut Up is what the name of it is, you know, and it's basically challenging like all of these brands to, you know, either pull up or shut up. Like, let me see your diversity numbers. How many people of color, you know, are in executive positions at your company, you know?
Yeah.
How many, you know, influencers do you work with that are Black? How many, you know what I mean? Like really asking for like those hard numbers. So I think that's the first step, you know, it's like taking accountability. You know, there's other brands like, you know, like TikTok. And I don't know if you saw the TikTok, you know, video that I did, but
I did.
You know, the day after George Floyd's murder, you know, my TikTok account got blocked. It got blocked for an entire week. And, you know, when it first got blocked, I thought it was an isolated thing. Like, oh, you know, I mean, I'm fairly new to TikTok. I've only had TikTok since quarantine. So just for a couple of months. And, you know, but then I started hearing more and more and more Black people whose account also got blocked. And the Black Lives Matter hashtag was blocked on the same day at the same time. And so, you know, what TikTok was doing is they were trying to suppress Black voices, you know? And so I had to speak out about it and I had to call them out on it, you know? And, you know, they, you know, released a statement like all the other companies have done since Black Lives Matter, saying that they value diversity and they support the movement. But, you know, if you really value Black people in the movement, like why would you want to silence Black people?
Right.
You know, why would you want to suppress or oppress, you know?
Basically on the call out, did they respond to you?
I mean, no, they didn't. They didn't. This is the type of systematic racism that I'm talking about. Some people don't understand what that means. You know, this is an example of what systematic racism is, you know?
And so important to be spoken up about, because it just blows my mind that in 2020 something like that can happen and not have an authentic response coming back.
Well, it's also ironic that in 2020, you know, a murder could happen on camera by a police officer and not get convicted or get off. And it's happened over and over and over
for 9
again.
minutes, right?
Yeah. You know, it's like, it just blows my mind how you can actually have a murder on camera and the murderer gets off. It's like, what if you went to work every day and you went to work one day and you killed somebody at your job and all you got was fired?
Yep. It's
Right?
it's unreal. It's
It's
unbelievable.
just, yeah. It's like, I
Yeah.
just, and it's not like it's just happened once or twice.
Right.
It's happened over and over and over and over again, you know? Emmett Till, you know, Trayvon Martin, Breonna Taylor, you know, George Floyd. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on. And I think people are just to the point where they're tired. They're tired of being tired. You know, they're fed up. They're like, enough. You know, something needs to be done to change this today, not tomorrow, but today.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is that, like you said, as a collective, we are finally coming together. Is it going to be perfect? No, because this is new for everyone. And I think that with George Floyd, it was, you know, so hard to watch for so many people that he woke, he woke up the world, which is, you know, so incredibly hard for his family, yet also such a gift to the world, because we've been asleep for so long and in so many things. With TikTok, it's just really surprising with knowing how out in the open companies are being called to be, that it could still be buried.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And my thing is like, you know, some of these corporations have used this excuse of, you know, well, you know, I don't know. It's like one of the brands that I work with, I had to call them out because they didn't black out their Instagram feed for Blackout Tuesday. They never put out a statement about the movement or anything. And if you look on their feed, there's nobody of color, you know, and I work with them as an influencer, and I told them I felt offended. You know what I mean?
Good.
It's like, yeah, it's like you can't just have your token and think that you're, you know, that you've excused yourself and, you know what I mean? And that's it, you know? So I have to call them out on it. But, you know, the only thing wrong to say right now is nothing at all. You know, it's like you have to use your voice, you know, and if you're afraid to use your voice, give up your seat at the table.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you are using your platform and voice, because it does take a lot of strength and courage to speak out.
Well, I definitely think, you know, being a content creator, being an influencer, it's like you do have the responsibility to use your platform and use your voice to initiate change and to stand up, you know, and be vocal about it. You know, it's fine to post selfies. It's fine to take photos every day in your newest outfit. But, you know, when something like this happens and you say nothing, like I have a problem with that, you know? You know, and the same goes with brands. You know, the entire fashion and beauty industry, you know, has a role to play in this movement.
Yeah. Well, I truly admire you and your voice in particular, because as a friend, as a follower for many years now, I've really been watching and inspired and listening, which is, I think, where we all have to be, is at the end of the day, listening to each other and listening to our hearts and really hearing. And your platform has always been that, like, inspired, safe place, because you just have always done such a beautiful job of being authentic, right?
It's not, you know, just up to the brands or the influencers or the content creators. It's like, even if you have 300 followers, it's like, use your voice, use your platform, you know, be empowered, empower yourself to speak up, you know?
The underlying message. And it's, you know, it's a time where people are waking up to that. And, you know, that's why I actually pulled my book from, like, my dream publisher to self-publish, like, ASAP. I think I got it ready within like 6 weeks, working night and day, because it's It's kind of a guide to how to find your voice, because I personally growing up didn't have one. I silenced myself.
Yeah.
And it's taken, a lot of work for me to dig deep into that and have the courage to speak out. So I think that our world in general, no matter what color, is having more courage to speak out. But what's important right now is we can no longer continue Black lives being anything other than what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like we said, it's 2020. It's way overdue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Long overdue.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, like, it takes a lot of courage to stand up for yourself, but it takes even more courage to stand up for others,
Yeah.
And it's like, don't think that it doesn't impact you. It impacts everyone.
Yeah. I'm almost the opposite. I feel like I can more easily stand up for others than myself. I need to go read my book. No. There's a lot of truth, and there's so much power in a single voice. Like, you never know in what moment, with what you say or don't say, how it's going to affect somebody, and and the impact that you have in the world.
Yeah.
You never know, and you never will know,
Yeah.
Any other thoughts that you have? I know we need to wrap it up, but I just so appreciate your heart and you being you, and you standing up for not only others, but for yourself in your space, like in the influencer world and content creation. And like, I kind of feel like at the end of the day, when we speak up, no matter who sees or doesn't see, who's in the room or not in the room, is where the change happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really speaking up in a lot of rooms, which is, just really, really inspiring. But any other thoughts before we wrap up that you have? Maybe thinking of women that want to find something they're passionate about, maybe start on the side, especially while we, haven't quite opened up the country yet. Just any last thoughts you have?
Yeah. I think in terms of work and career, I've never, I've never judged, my success by the amount of money that I make. My success comes and is measured by the amount of lives that I'm able to impact. And so, just always just keep that in mind. How could you be of service to others? How can you help others? How can you further a movement? How can you use your voice? I think everyone has room to grow, room to learn, and room to educate. And so, I want to encourage everybody to go to the polls, take all your frustration out at the polls in November. Use your voice, exercise your right to vote, and use your voice.
Yes. Thank you, my dear. You are such a light in the world, and I'm so grateful to have you in my life, and I'm so grateful to have you here today. Thank you for taking the time for this, and
yes, thank you.
It really means a lot to me to have you here. Yeah. But so that people can follow you and find you on social media, your website, where can people find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at Kinya Claiborne or Style and Society. My name is Kinya Claiborne. You can also follow Style and Society on Twitter, also on Facebook. We are on YouTube, and then we're also on TikTok as well. TikTok, Kinya Claiborne and Style and Society. You can see all of my Black Lives Matter movement content on my TikTok account.
Thank you so much, girl.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on Beauty and the Mess. Feel free to visit Robin on Instagram at Robin_Emmerich. Keep on living your beautiful life and embrace the mess.